This is the Academic Survival Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Chandra McDonald. Statistics show that approximately 40% of students drop out of college every year. In fact, nearly 30% drop out their first year. Well, I am on a mission to improve these stats.
The best thing that you can do, and at least to audition for Berklee. For other schools, it might be a little different, but for Berklee, instead of playing something, because you have to come with a prepared song, instead of playing something that you think they'll like, play something that you like and you are like really good at.
On today's episode of Academic Survival, I interview musician Blake Leigh. Now, Blake's story is interesting because he started off at Bentley University, but ended up at Berklee College of Music. Yeah, he was going down the business route and decided he'd rather be a musician. Now, during this interview, a couple of interesting things happened. So first of all, I made I guess maybe not so common mistake of thinking that he was at Cal Berkeley, but he was at Berklee School of Music, like totally a different school, right? And so I ended up realizing that, man, this interview would be so much better if I actually had one of my musician friends on the line with me. And so in the course of this interview, I kind of worked that out, and I invite Kelly Daza, who is a music teacher in Iowa. And so she ends up joining the interview at some point during the conversation. Now, one of the other things that I think is a really good takeaway from this episode is when you recognize that you need help, go on ahead and get that help. Phone a friend, which is what I did. So join me now on Academic Survival with this interview of Blake Leigh, assisted by Kelly Daza. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Blake. Welcome to the Academic Survival Podcast. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I was so interested in hearing your story. I learned a little bit about it, something about starting at one school and then leaving and then going to another school.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I really want to get into that. But what I'd like for you to do is tell us a little bit about your background, and then the school you started at, and then how you ended up at an entirely different school. You can kind of like go through that process for us.
Yeah. So out of high school, I applied to a bunch of colleges, a bunch on the East Coast. I wanted to like experience all like winter and everything. And I got into Bentley University, which is in Waltham, Massachusetts. It's like 30 minutes outside of Boston. I was there for a semester and I kind of like didn't like it. So I applied to Berklee College of Music, got in for the fall of that next year. So I stayed one more semester at Bentley, and then that fall I went to Berklee, did 3 years there, and graduated in August a couple months ago.
Oh, recent graduate. Yeah. Awesome. Yep. So what was it that you didn't like about Bentley?
It's not that I didn't like it. I didn't want to do all that. I didn't want to get a degree and then in like business or accounting or something like that, and then have to work like for however many years in that whole environment. It's just not my style.
Okay. So what was the rationale behind applying to that school to begin with?
Well, I really like econ, all the charts and graphs and learning about how the economy works and everything. And I thought, yeah, it would be a great like career to have in high school. So I applied to a bunch of schools for economics and business. And that's how I ended up at Bentley.
Okay. And then at some point that you realized that wasn't me.
Yeah, I took a couple like econ classes my first year. A lot of it there is they do all the normal college classes first, and then there's like an IT class we had to take and a bunch of accounting classes we had to take because the
Um,
school is like a huge accounting school. And I really did not like the accounting. It was just really boring to me and
mm.
like wasn't interested, didn't want to do that. So I figured if I had to do like 4 more years of this, that would be terrible.
You
It
weren't
was
going to
not
finish,
fun.
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
So, so what does it take to abandon one road and
hmm
switch to something else? What was it that gave you the courage to make that transition?
Well, it's you have to like what I learned is if you're not doing like something that you really want to do,
Hmm.
there's no point in doing it.
Mm.
And even at like Berklee, there would be like opportunities, like gigs or recording sessions that I said yes to, and then like halfway through it, I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. Why am I doing this? So it's like it's learning what you really want to do
Hmm.
and just sticking to that. Like not doing something because you think it's right.
Right, right. And I would imagine, don't let me put words in your mouth, but I would imagine doing like going down the wrong path and then switching to something else that like being able to compare the two probably made it feel like once you made that transition, like, oh, this is a much better fit.
Oh yeah, way way better. Like the first like couple weeks at Berklee, going to all the classes, just the people there, it was way more my speed than
Wow.
all the business minded people. Just ooh.
It was really like a what is that, a left brain, right brain switch you did there.
Oh yeah, it's a complete like 180. Yeah.
Yeah. So then tell me now when you got to Berkeley and now you're like what was the major? What was your major at Berkeley?
My major was jazz composition. So
Ooh.
yeah, so at Berklee, jazz composition is kind of two parts. Um, it's learning how to write your own music using like theories and techniques from jazz throughout like the 20s to now.
Okay.
Um, and then the second part is what like most of your work is done is writing stuff for either small bands or big bands. And I
Hmm.
did a lot of big band writing. So that's what is it? Five. So it's like 14 or 15 horns and then a rhythm section. So it's a group of 20 people and
Wow.
writing out music for each and every one of them.
Wow. That's like that's way more sophisticated than GarageBand, right?
Oh,
GarageBand where you
yeah.
like where you pick, okay, I want the sax to come in here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's fantastic. So are you working
hmm
on anything right now?
I am, well, since I've moved to New York, I've done a lot more playing than writing.
Hmm.
Um, just because just how it works over here kind of is everybody plays all the
Hmm.
time, and then you kind of get into writing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow, that is a big jump. So you did a lot of coast to coast jumping then.
Well, I've been in like the Northeast for 4 or 5 years. So
Okay.
it was Boston, then New York these last couple months.
Okay. All right. So normally I like to find out, like, tell me about your first day of school, like being dropped
hmm
off, or like, did you have that experience?
Yeah, so I think it was both times. Yeah, both first days at each school. It was me and my mom. At Bentley, we brought all of our stuff into the dorms, and what was it? I think it was either the football team or the rugby team was like helping everybody carry all their stuff in. It was really cool. I met my roommate there, like for the first time. This is a random roommate selection.
Okay.
Um, at Berkeley, we I knew my roommate beforehand. He was a mutual friend of somebody,
Hmm.
and we had met in LA over the summer. and hung out for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I moved in before him, so he wasn't there. But just there wasn't that much stuff to bring up at Berklee. It was just like my keyboard and bed sheets and clothes, and
Okay.
like that's about it.
I have an ignorant question to ask you.
Okay.
So when you say Berkeley, I'm assuming Cal, but are we talking about Cal Berkeley? Or are we talking about
No, no, it's
okay.
there's a second Berklee. Yeah, yeah, it's a different Berklee. It's in Boston. It's
Okay.
Berklee College of Music.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, that's why I was asking about the whole like
yeah,
of like, yeah,
jumping
you're
back
doing
and
a bunch,
forth.
yeah, from coast to
No, no,
coast, and
no,
then
no.
like in New York, and I'm like, you know what? I'm
What?
connecting some dots here, and I don't think he's talking about Cal
Yeah,
Berkeley.
wrong. Different
Okay.
Berklee. It gets
Okay. So
mixed up
Berkeley
all the
School.
time.
So then this is strictly then a music school.
Yeah, it is a college of music, so you
Oh
can only
wow.
do. Everyone's a musician. Everyone does music stuff there.
So is there an audition involved?
Yes, after Christmas break, um, like going 2018 to 2019, that was when I was
Mm-hmm.
still at Bentley. I practiced a lot. And when I came back to Boston for my next semester, I made the trip into Boston to go to Berkeley's campus
Mm-hmm.
and do a live audition there with
Wow.
some of the professors and heads of faculty.
So this is so you are the first musician that I have
Oh, really?
interviewed. So yeah, yeah, you're the first musician that I've interviewed. So I have some totally like I have got some
Yeah.
like questions that are like choo 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 pop into my head. Okay, so when you so what musical instrument are you playing?
So I auditioned on piano,
Mm-hmm.
and then was it second semester at Berkeley? Um, I started taking Hammond organ lessons from uh, a guy who just started teaching there at my second semester, and it was like fantastic. It was so much fun.
Wow. So what made you want to pursue music?
Um, I've been so in like fourth grade, my teacher did a like an art night. Everybody brought in art or did poetry or like played instruments, and my good friend plays piano. He's been playing forever, so he played piano at that like art gallery, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need to learn piano now. So I got a teacher and I've been taking lessons ever since pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 So when I was growing up, I played the violin,
Hmm.
and I was pretty good at it. I don't know why I ever. Well, actually, I do know why I stopped. But when I say pretty good, meaning like first chair, second chair. Like I was
Yeah.
really, yeah. Um, but I gave it up. But one of my close friends continued to pursue it, and
Hmm.
so she ended up. I don't know if you remember this. There's a show back in the day called Fame, and
Okay.
it was about it was a performing arts school,
Oh, nice.
and so my friend loved that show, and that inspired her. She wanted to audition for LA School of the Performing Arts, so that's where she ended
Yeah,
up
yeah, yeah.
going to high school, and then and she pursued music, so she plays the cello. So she's done
Oh, nice.
yeah, she's done a lot of like really amazing things with that. And right now she actually
Yeah.
teaches at she's in Iowa, and she teaches elementary well,
Oh,
actually elementary school, junior high. I'm not sure what grade she teaches, but she travels from school to school teaching music.
oh, cool. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I that's really cool. It's one of those to me it sounds like one of those professions where you really get to just have fun. You know, I can
Yeah,
totally see
it's so much fun, just especially this last summer, actually doing like recording sessions for people. Um, my friend did this whole blues album, or three actually,
Mhm.
but he got me to play on it and our like my core group of friends, like we were all the rhythm section.
Uh-huh.
And even though we were working like 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the studio, it was just like we were having a blast the whole time. It
Right.
was amazing.
That's cool. Well, so what advice would you give to a college freshman who is
Mhm.
trying to go down this musician path that you've taken? What advice would you give a freshman?
A freshman?
Yes.
I would say learn like what is worth your time. I know a lot of people will just say yes to everything. One of my best friends at Berklee, he's still in school right now.
Hmm.
This last semester, he just said yes to everything. And he had days or like spans of weeks where every single day it was 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. just either in school, rehearsing, recording, teaching, and he just got so burnt out. And he was just like, I hate all this. Why am I why am I exhausting
Mm,
myself like this? So it's it's like finding what you really like to do, finding other people who really like to do it
hmm.
too, in like terms of style or whatever like musical choice you want to make, and just doing that thing with them.
Hmm. So finding your yes.
Yeah,
What's your yes?
exactly.
What are the things that you would normally say yes to?
Things that I would say yes to.
Hmm.
I really like I really liked helping people with their scores. So not everybody is doing a composition major at Berklee, but they still have to learn how to read and write music. Um, so a lot of my friends and other people would come to me and be like, "Can you help me? Can you look over this and tell me like what's wrong with this score? I have to bring it into class tomorrow and we have to play it." And I would look over it and be like, "Oh, you got to move this here. This is illegible. Like you can fix it this way. Um, you like you don't write drums like that. It's very confusing." Um, and I really like doing that for people. That was very fun helping people with fixing up their music.
It's like proofreading.
Yeah, it's literally proofreading, but with like notes on a score.
Yeah, proofreading a score. Like when you said illegible, I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize that that was a term that we used for music
Oh
composition.
yeah, it is. Some people write things in the worst possible way, and it's like, how do you expect someone to read that?
Wow.
It's yeah. I like doing that, and then I also found out I was really good at right, and I really liked rehearsing bands. So a lot of the time people would be doing a show or something and they get a band together. You book a rehearsal room. They have these rooms at Berklee where there's like pianos and like a drum set and a bunch of amps that you can go in and practice for a couple hours.
Do they put you in a whisper room?
Yeah, it's like padded walls and so
Hmm.
you can't hear everything else. And a lot of the times people just aren't very focused in the rehearsal and it doesn't really go anywhere and it's frustrating. But I really liked coming in with my score and all my parts printed. Everyone had already got the parts beforehand, and just having a super efficient rehearsal and getting through everything. That's like the best feeling in the world when it all
Hmm.
comes together really easily.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, are you still doing that type of work?
Uh, Not right now. Right now, I'm working to make rent in New York.
Oh no!
um,
Does that mean you're saying yes to everything?
no, I right now I'm doing I have a bartending job and I'm slowly getting into the music stuff. We have a live jazz night every night with a bunch of musicians from around New York come in and play and
Hmm.
hang out, and I've been playing with them and meeting with them and just talking about music and making the connections.
Okay.
um, but yeah, I'm working a semi-normal job in between that.
All right.
Mhm.
So, you were able to talk a little bit about the audition. What advice would you give for someone who was going to have to audition for
To
entrance to?
audition,
Hmm.
yeah, I've talked to my friends about this, about auditioning, because he actually helps people with their auditions beforehand. The best thing that you can do, and at least a audition for Berklee, for other schools it might be a little different, but for Berklee, um, instead of playing something, because you have to come with a prepared song,
Okay.
instead of playing something that you think they'll like, play something that you like and you are like really good at.
Mm.
So even though it's a jazz school, if you're a blues guitarist, come in and play a like rip on a blues and they'll love it. They love having people who are really good at what they do and are really invested in what they do um instead of trying to make themselves seem like something they're not.
Yes, yes. That's that's a good lesson all the way
Mm,
around. That's a good
yeah.
lesson all the way around. It's like just it sounds like what you're saying is you've got to be authentic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, you can't like make stuff up
Yeah.
to impress people.
So, what did you learn the most about yourself in the experience of being at one school and going to another, and then just all together being at the Berklee School of Music? What have you learned about yourself?
I've learned the thing that have been talking about is finding what you like actually like, and sticking to it. That's been a huge thing for me, just overall. And I guess something at Berkeley that I learned specifically, especially in my major, is you have to get work done the second it's assigned.
Hmm.
So, um,
Tell me more about that.
yeah, so not procrastinating on stuff um, is huge when you're writing um, like 20-page scores for 20 people. So my last year or my last semester in our final jazz composition class, they had the whole semester is writing a 10-minute piece for a large ensemble, which
Hmm.
is a ton of music. It is it's insane how much music it is. People do not write that for fun.
So you said 10 minutes.
Yeah, at least 10 minutes long
Okay.
for like a 10 to 20 person band.
10 minutes, 10 to 20 people. And is that a 20, will that end up being 20 pages?
I do I have it with me? It's somewhere over here. I have the score for
Okay.
it, and it's at least 20 pages long. And
Wow.
it's just this giant sheet of paper and just flipping through it. Um,
It's like a term
but
paper musically.
yeah, literally. Um, but the way they go about it throughout the semester is, at least my professor did this every week. You have to show what you've worked on over the
Mm,
week. Um, so people don't fall behind and write like something they didn't want to write the night before.
right. Because that's got to look
Um,
like garbage, right? 20 pages with
yeah,
just in one night. It's got to look.
yeah, absolutely terrible. But that really helped me learn to just do things as soon as possible. Like if you have the free time after your class and you just got homework and it's going to take you like an hour, just do it instead of
Mm,
waiting until the night before it's due. Because I had so many friends, and like me included sometimes, where it'll be like a Sunday night
hmm.
and you have 6 hours of work to do for the week. And that's just, it's not fun and it's not like healthy, I guess.
So I have a question. I know that like for me, when I get started earlier rather than later, um, it gives me an opportunity to have aha moments when I'm not in the moment,
Yeah.
and then that I don't afford myself the opportunity to have if I try to cram everything into the just one overnight session. Does the same thing
Yeah.
happen musically?
Exactly. Yeah. There's been so many times when I'm writing a piece and I've written parts of it beforehand, like a week ago,
Hmm.
and I go back and I look and I think to myself, what were you thinking with these notes? What are you doing here? And fixing it and rereading it and proofreading it and just making it, the more time you spend on it, just the better it'll be to like
Yeah.
a certain point.
Do you also find that you end up with clarity, but when you're not actually writing it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
ever
yeah.
like figure things out when you actually step away?
Yeah, that's a huge part of working on a giant project is actually taking a break and not like actively think about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess like passively think about it. Um, and you get ideas for
Yes.
other parts or like how to expand something when you're not sitting in front of the computer screen with all
Yes.
like the score in front of you.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so that's interesting to know that that happens musically as well. Because for
Oh
me,
yeah.
it's like I have the best ideas in the shower. It's like, oh, I know how to. I can fix that. I can add that, and yeah. So that ends up being a really good. That's a really good reason why not to procrastinate, because you can really um, have the time to really develop something.
Yeah,
It shows
yeah.
if you do it well. Yeah, you just end up with a better product. That's awesome.
Me and all of my friends have many voice memos of us walking down the street, singing something into our phone that we thought of to use for later. It's
Yeah. Yes, yes. Thank God for the smartphones, right?
oh yeah.
From the voice memos to the voice notes and yes,
Yeah,
texting yourself.
yeah, texting yourself, the
Yeah.
metronomes on the phone, the tuner on the phone. It's so helpful.
So is there such a thing as studying when you're in a music school? Like
Yeah.
is there a library to go to
Oh
study?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like a really extensive library actually. I should have used it a lot more than I did, but I guess yeah, our library is a little different. There's a whole like listening room where
Hmm.
they have a catalog of endless CDs of everything, and you can listen to whatever you want. I think you
Mm-hmm.
can even, yeah, you can rent them out, full albums, and study the album. They have walls of scores and sheet music, and walls of biographies, everything else, magazines. Um, it's incredible. The library at Berkeley is really extensive and really cool.
Man, you've said a couple things that makes me wish that I had invited my musician friend to join
Mhm.
to join
Yeah.
this session, and she could really like ask you some questions that I'm just not even going to think of. So excuse my ignorance. Well, did you have a favorite place to study?
To study, I spent I spent some time in the library looking at things. Most of the time, it was just at my desk because a lot of the resources that we had for class were online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just look on my computer and look at it that way, or if I really like needed it, I would print it out and have it at my desk in my room to take notes on it and everything.
Okay. Tell me, what musically are you working on now?
Musically, right now, I'm working on getting better at playing because I was never really big into playing. I was always about writing. So I'm working on that. I have
Mm-hmm.
my keyboard right here. Just being able to, I guess this is kind of studying, like music studying is
Uh-huh.
learning jazz tunes, um, committing them to memory, committing the chord changes to memory,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to solo over different things. All of that stuff, I guess, is studying, but for musicians.
Okay.
Um, I've also been slowly working on a big band piece, but right now I don't have a ton of time for that.
Okay. This is amazing. I'm serious because it's a part of something that for me anyway, I feel like I let go of.
Yeah,
And then I just go back and I'm like, man, I wonder if I would have continued. Like I always wanted to play the organ,
yeah,
and my mom bought a piano. and it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not the same. And
It's very not.
yeah, and so and I didn't enjoy it. And I think primarily I didn't enjoy it because I didn't really care for the music that
Yeah.
I had to play. And so then at the time, I bought music that was way too complicated for me to ever play.
Yeah.
But it was the music that I liked. And so
Yeah, weird.
I bought a book, and it was Michael Jackson.
Mhm.
I think it was like his Human Nature album.
Okay.
And I couldn't read any of it. But I
We've all been
tried.
there. Yeah.
I tried so hard. But like I said, I could not read any of it. So I have been told that that my friend will be available.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So now Kelly joins the conversation. Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. So first of all, you're on speakerphone.
Okay.
I have Blake, who I am interviewing for my podcast. Okay. And I immediately thought of you because he is a graduate of the Berklee School of Music. Are you familiar with that school?
Yes.
Is that a ridiculous question for me to ask you?
A little bit, but that's all right. So I'm a little sad that you might not be familiar.
Well, look, let me tell you how bad it was. At some point, I realized that he was not talking about Berklee, like Cal Berkeley, and their music department. I know. It's like really, I sounded really ignorant. I was like, I got an ignorant question to ask you. It sounds like you're not talking about Cal. And he's like, no.
No, not the same. But I mean, you came right, honestly.
Yeah. So, because I don't have a music background, I was just like, I'm going to phone a friend and see what else that I should be asking him. Because if anyone's listening to this with a music background, and if it's a student who's pursuing music, they're probably thinking, man, she's not asking any of the right questions. So what questions would you ask?
Well, I think I would want to know, of course, what his instrument is, voice instrument, otherwise, like what his major would be, because it could be composition, it could be performance, it could be education, it could be to continue,
okay,
and go on to a graduate degree and teach at the collegiate level, could be conductor. So I want to know where he saw himself in the future that inspired the change.
Okay. Did you hear that, Blake?
Mm-hmm. I've been eyeing graduate school. Been thinking about, or I want to look into Manhattan School of Music because they have a really good jazz composition department. I graduated with a degree in jazz composition.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
He was telling me about 20-page scores and whatnot.
Yeah. What instrument is your major?
I auditioned on piano, but I ended up switching to Hammond organ.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Love the Hammond.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it can be a workout sometimes, but it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to start looking into Manhattan School of Music for the future.
That is the only school that I auditioned for in high school. I'm a jazz cellist.
Oh, really?
It's the only school I auditioned for and got in, but could not afford to live there because there were no dorms.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Many moons ago. Do they have dorms now?
I barely. My friend went there, and I don't think she's living in dorms right now. It's hard to live there.
And where did you grow up?
I'm from Long Beach, California.
Me too.
Yeah.
Then where did you go to high school?
I went to Poly.
Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm. I did choir there, and I also did band there my senior year.
Do they have a jazz band at Poly?
Yeah, it's a huge part of their music program.
See, that's very interesting because Chandra and I grew up in Long Beach. We went to Paramount initially, but
Okay.
I ended up transferring and going to the High School for the Arts
Yeah.
on Cal State LA's campus.
Yeah.
Because we did not have the jazz program at Paramount. Clearly, I didn't know
Yeah.
I thought I was a classical cellist at that time anyway, so I didn't know that was the draw. But yeah.
Very cool. I have one of my friends at Berklee is also a jazz cellist, and he's just incredible. They're very few and far between, but they're always fantastic.
Well, I don't see why they are few and far between, other than the fact that it's a difficult process, because you know how the easiest path is usually emulating other soloists, which I did. I took all the like Chick Corea,
on cello
parts and tried to learn them. But the facility is so different on the instrument.
Yeah,
it was easier for me to take. There were more jazz violin parts that I could more emulate.
Yeah.
It is hard to grow your bag of tricks. Without having many models.
Yeah, exactly.
So who are your influences?
I really like. I love listening to Jimmy Smith for organ, McGriff for organ as well. Those are like the two big ones. For piano, I really like Vince Guaraldi, and not just the Christmas stuff. All of his other stuff I think is fantastic. All the Brazilian stuff that he did is amazing. All just the straight ahead jazz stuff is really good too. And then I also listen to a ton of Chet Baker. Those are like the four.
So what's the market like for jazz composition? Because so I live in Iowa now, and by and large, you've got the festivals that kids play at, and they still do the old standard, big band style, 4 tunes where you have the big opener, the freaking samba, the ballad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What is the market like for writing jazz music? What does that look like?
There's a lot of different ways you can go. I know a bunch of people right now, especially, are writing their own music and releasing it, not through a label or anything, producing it themselves and doing their own thing. A lot of people also will write, a lot of my professors have written different level difficulty charts that you put onto a distributor website, and high schools will buy them. That's another way. That's a very lucrative thing you can do. What else? A lot of people go into writing stuff for advertisements, making music like jingles or background music for stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of the jazz musicians that I think were fantastic, that I grew up with, they're all in other genres now. One person that was really a fantastic guitarist, he now plays with mostly Americana kind of steel guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, another jazz musician friend of mine, he tons of studio stuff, but then ended up opening a studio in Missoula, Montana.
Yeah.
And pretty much does jam bandy kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I've found with a lot of my friends too, or at least my group of friends. like freshman year, we'd all go in and we'd all play tunes together, and everyone takes a solo and everything. But towards the end, we were all just we were all just playing blues music like, for the last
Yeah.
semester, and like that was what we wanted. That was like way more fun than um playing tunes. I still love like straight ahead jazz, but it's just when everybody else really likes something, it's just so much more fun to just do that one thing, especially if
Right.
you like it too, instead of forcing everybody to just play normal jazz.
Right. And that's a thing that that you think about, is that as musicians, we choose to do this because it's a communal sort of process.
Yeah, exactly.
And the more the more like into jazz, or on the other side, contemporary, or like prepared piano pieces and things that, it becomes more of an isolated process,
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
where you kind of have to find that middle ground where you can commune with each other.
Yeah.
Where so you're thinking of going to Manhattan. Have you ever thought, like, I have a student of mine who's now at Columbia in Chicago, and they have a fantastic community of like jazz musicians that really they play around town constantly, like constant, like, and there's a school in I don't know why my brain is failing me, in Memphis, maybe.
Oh, really? I don't know what school it is, or is it? I'm not sure.
Am I not thinking of this right? Maybe not Memphis. Oh, it's in the South, where there's tons of studios.
Yeah.
And their students get tons and tons of studio time.
Yeah, I think the Vanderbilt, the head of their jazz band there is like good friends with one of my professors. I got to send them one of my scores one time. It was really cool. They get a ton of studio time down there for the big band.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking of Belmont. Where's Belmont?
Oh, Belmont. I'm not sure.
In Nashville. In Nashville. They have a great jazz studies program as well, and they have so much like work. The kids work.
Yeah.
A ton.
Transitioning from the one school that you were at to the school you ended up at, and just basically going from math to music, do you find that there's a mathematical way of understanding music?
Oh, yeah. I think it's not the same, but it like works, at least for me, it works in a similar like part of my brain, especially like writing a big band chart in the style of like Count Basie or Neil Hefti or something, and doing all the voicings. It's just like, to me, it's the same as like just doing math. There's like a way to do it, and it's a proven thing that'll sound like that era. And it all just kind of like works out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Kel?
Yeah, I think that music is the auditory representation of math. It's like math in life. The way that you can express math in a way that people can experience and hear. It's like how, Beethoven was deaf in his late years, but the math is always going to sound correct. The chord progressions, all of the voicings, like he didn't need to hear what he was writing down. He knew how it would sound because of the math.
Yeah, like a lot of the
like if I have my string if I cut my string directly in half, like into portions, it plays an exact octave higher than, you know, the string, the fundamental pitch of the string. I cut it into thirds, then it plays a fifth higher. And then I cut it, if you cut it mathematically into true portions, and you have to get the portions correct, it literally, you hear the sound of it doubling, and then you hear the sound. So yeah, it's like math and music are, I think of them as like essential partners. And people who cannot visualize math, I think, struggle with music.
Yeah.
But people who excel in math are going to inherently have the ability, at least to understand music. And like when you express that, you know, what 440 beats per minute looks like in a wave, in a sound wave.
Yeah.
That if you double it or if you cut it in half, that you're going to express the same tone, but in a different octave, or the same pitch in a different octave. Like, that's something that mathematicians will go, oh, that totally makes sense. And then they can do some like fundamentally more difficult things because they understand the math of how the instrument produces sound.
Yeah. What did we, in the Bay Area when they were first coming out with synthesizers, it was all just like mathematicians and like computer people creating these synths and just using math to make music. It like being able to create different sounds by plugging in or by changing the frequency by however many decibels or clicks or whatever. It was very cool.
What fascinates me about that is that in the way that I have perfect pitch and I can hear an A in nature and know that that's an A, that kids these days, probably including you, can hear like a sound wave that's been inverted or it's been reversed, and they know, oh, that's this synthesized sound inverted. Like that's a language I do not speak. It's fascinating to me that your generation can hear that in a sample.
Yeah.
And go, oh yeah, that's that inverted, reversed, drawn out or something that I'm like, yeah, that didn't exist in the 90s.
So based on what you're saying, that there's some mad scientist that perhaps if you write the perfect score, you can figure out how to send someone to the moon musically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. And world peace, all the things.
Okay, Kel, well, thank you so much for joining on the spot.
Yeah, thank you.
Spontaneous, because like he was over here. I knew enough to know that I wasn't asking the best questions because of my lack of music background, and then and I'm getting the sense I'm like I could possibly have a like some music genius over here, and I'm not even recognizing it. And then like you're like saying, "Oh wow, that's fantastic! Oh wow, that's awesome!" And I'm like, I missed it. I missed the opportunities to say like, "Wow, Blake, that's great." So
can I say what? Let me say one thing that Blake will appreciate.
Okay,
that is in the same vein is that. I had a student that I was teaching music theory to when he was about 8, and I was trying to teach him interval training, like listening, ear training, and I was just trying to teach him what a second was, and so I played a C and then a D, and he wasn't watching the notes I was playing. I knew he had perfect pitch when I started with him, but I put a C and a D, and he said it was a C9.
Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't even explain to his guitar teacher, because his guitar teacher didn't really even understand 9 chords.
Yeah.
So like I was trying to explain to his mom the giftedness that her child had by explaining, like,
Yeah, that's
you
wild.
shouldn't have the vocabulary to say that a C and a D together would be a simplified C9.
Wow.
And literally, I'm like, there's not even a college he could go to here
Yeah.
in Iowa that could, you know, he was 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Yeah.
like, that's bananas. Anyway, sorry, that was my injection and then not knowing what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. So this has been quite an experience. Yeah. Thank you again. If the two of you want to get in touch with one another, because maybe there's something musically that you should be exploring, then let me know separately, and then I can make sure that you guys can get connected. Well, again, thank you so much for joining Academic Survival. I wish you the best. What do you aspire to do? Like, what is your dream job?
There's maybe 2 things that I'd really love to do in the future. One is to be able to just write for my own big band and have them perform on like a weekly like residency somewhere. That would be awesome.
Okay.
Something else I would really like to do is to teach like jazz composition or arranging or something at a high level, which would be really cool.
Okay. Teaching at a high level, does that mean at like a university level?
Like a university or something would be super cool.
Oh, awesome.
Or like people who are really interested in doing it.
Like someone who knows what a C9 is or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me on Academic Survival. I wish you the best. And thank you so much for bringing your musical background and conversation to this episode.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
That's it for today on Academic Survival. If you want to share your story on how you survived your freshman year of college, you can reach me at info@chandralmcdonald.com. We'll be back next week with more ways to survive your academic journey. Until then, happy studying.